Okay.
Bingo.
Okay, cool. So like I was saying, today we're just going over like what is marketing as a career. Marketing from the major in the business school is kind of if you're exploring a couple of different careers or not really sure what you want to do, you just know kind of business is something that you're interested in, or if you're not in the business school and you just are kind of interested in marketing as a whole, it's a really good major. It's kind of for people who think creatively and analytically, just for people who are kind of people and numbers people. So it's kind of, you can kind of find something for everyone within marketing, which is kind of something that I like about it. When I first got started with the business school, I kind of took on this major, not really knowing a lot about it. I've quickly learned a lot about it. So it's something that you can kind of find a job for anyone, which is also the nice thing about it. So getting started, which is the next slide, Amanda, please, is what is marketing? So we have kind of this umbrella term, which is anything dealing with the creation of a product or service and its subsequent branding in the hopes of getting people to buy or interact with the product. So I know that sounds kind of just like vague, but it's marketers work across many different channels and skill areas. And they are the brains behind getting the word out about their organization's products or services. So again, sounds kind of vague, but it's basically the brains behind getting information out about different products, about different services. So any way that we learn about a product or a brand in our everyday life, a marketer is behind that. So I know a lot of millennials or Gen Z are on different social media accounts, and a lot of that marketing is done and marketers are behind that. So the advertisements you see, the different billboards we see every day, the ad campaigns, everything, that's marketing. Both sides of it too. So the ad and the things that we are seeing and taking in with our, all of our senses. And then also like the data and the numbers and all of that is also marketing. So that's just kind of something quickly to take in. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they monitor the market trends. They create the advertising campaigns, like I mentioned. They're also developing the pricing strategies and targeting strategies based on demographic data. And they work with the company to develop more awareness of what they offer. So again, if there's different like companies and different branding, it's what specific brands can offer depending on what their demographic is. So Target is not all of a sudden going to start selling what like a Gucci might sell or something like that. So it's all kind of depending on the data, price points, everything like that. And that's all what a marketer might do. And again, marketing is very broad. And so we'll get a little bit more specific about what that might be. Next slide. So this is just something I threw in, something you might want to jot down if you're thinking about building your resume or just thinking about qualities that you might, if you possess these and might want to be, getting into the marketing field. These are qualities that make a successful marketing professional. So initiative is definitely something that a marketer must have. You have to keep yourself motivated and on track. You're not always going to be in an environment where they're telling you what to do 24/7. You kind of have to make your own path, take on different projects on your own, get yourself moving. That kind of leads into that flexibility. You have to adopt new practices, update your skill set and knowledge base, and keep up with the industry. It is forever changing, which I'm sure you can imagine, even just how like social media changes. I mean, TikTok, how much that has changed and blown up since even just being in this like pandemic. I got a birthday present last Monday and got the same birthday present, which was like this book embosser, the same one 2 days later from a different friend that they saw on TikTok. That was like the most unique birthday present that I'd ever seen, but they both saw it on TikTok and they were like, I just thought it was the most unique gift, but they both saw it on TikTok. So like how quickly things are changing is just so weird. But that's kind of marketing and having to be flexible and moving with the times. Communication skills is obviously a big one. So you're disseminating messages all the time, whether that's through like pictures and ad campaigns, or you're actually like writing content that's going out into the world, as well as building and maintaining relationships with customers. So if you're working on more like a PR side, maybe you're like writing things more, or like at events and, you know, talking and things like that. That creativity is also so big. You might be thinking that you're not a creative brain, and maybe that's not the way your brain, you know, works, but that's okay. We'll kind of talk about that too. But there's no right or wrong answer in marketing. You know, the better or like the more creative way that you try to solve a problem might be the right answer and might work, and might be the way that your company like solves a problem might be, you know, so crazy that and out of the box that it works. Another skill is like collaboration and teamwork. So within marketing, you can be working with several teams within a marketing campaign. So the sales team, finance, logistics team, as well as many other teams. Energy is a great skill. So you have to be passionate at what you do and come to work bursting with enthusiasm. Obviously we all have days where we're not feeling it, don't want to be at work or something like that. But for the most times you got to have that energy, that spark, and be ready to bring that passion to work. And then the big one is active listening. So you're observing people all the time and expecting what they really want. So you might be observing a customer and really trying to listen for what they want, so that you can really bring what they're looking for. Are there any questions about kind of any of these skills? Okay, and there's always room for questions at the end. So there's kind of these like 3 buckets of marketing, and this is kind of how I break it down and how my brain breaks it down. There's an analytical bucket, a creative bucket, and then this combination bucket. So, and this is how the jobs kind of are separated and kind of broken down into the marketing world. So the analytical bucket is definitely more of a number side, data side, market research side. And a lot of these jobs are more numbers and data, and students who are, you know, looking for jobs in this side of things maybe follow a more like quantitative side of things. And then that creative side, they're looking for more of that like people side of things, trying to get into more of that like ad space creating side, maybe looking more in for like graphic design, Photoshop. That's kind of how their brain works. And then this combination is, I didn't have a perfect name for it, but they're kind of like both sides, or don't really have a passion for either side. And there are jobs that kind of combine both without really focusing on either. So right now I'm going to jump into kind of explaining more jobs that fall into each bucket, and then recruitment timelines, so that you understand kind of when you would need to look for internships and jobs that fall into these buckets. And these buckets are definitely kind of how I see things. It's not like the perfect analogy, but kind of how I like to see things. So next slide. First is analytical. So with analytical, these are just some examples, obviously not an exhaustive list. And keep in mind that these categories sometimes overlap and are also kind of shifting constantly. So as you can imagine, the marketing world is, you know, forever changing. With market research, this is probably the biggest job within the analytical bucket. So within market research, you're defining a business problem, you're designing research, and then you're identifying, collecting, analyzing, interpreting data, and then communicating the results. So for students that like data, Excel, numbers in general, this is where you would kind of shine within the marketing world. So for an example, a company such as like, there's a Diet Coke sitting in front of me right now. So a company that might be working with like Diet Coke, or with Diet Coke, for Diet Coke, they might be studying why Diet Coke sells more with, 20s women than Diet Pepsi, or 20s women within the Midwest rather than a coast or something like that. So they're analyzing the data to really understand their market. Then they might work with the creative team, which we'll get to as well, to target 20-year-old women and really sell to that team. The SEO and SEM, which is search engine optimization, is tailoring a company's website and marketing content to search engine requirements, and then targeting potential customers who use search engines through paid advertising. So basically, I'm a Diet Coke drinker, so they might be targeting specific ads to me because, I am. So people that, I don't know if you've ever been like talking about something and then all of a sudden it's coming up on ads on your computer or something like that, which is terrifying. Speaking back about that, like Embosser, I told another friend that I got one, and then she was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so cool. And then a day later she got a TikTok for it. And she was like, the phone is listening to me. And then we had like a slight panic attack. But that's kind of this SEO stuff in a, layman's terms, but that is what this is. So they're reading that data, what you might be searching on other, it's like cookies and stuff like that. So, when they said that like this website might use your cookies or whatever, they're looking at your other searches, reading that data, and then sending you these targeted ads that you're going to read, and then things that you might click on and read later. Then digital marketing also falls under this analytical side within terms of kind of our recruitment timeline. And digital marketing, I know, is a big one for students. Digital marketing is all marketing efforts that use an electronic device or the internet to connect with current and prospective customers. And I know that's very broad, but people that are interested in digital marketing, I know that's kind of in like an up and coming field. And that's, like I said, very broad. But for keep in mind with this recruitment timeline, which I'll touch on in a second, digital marketing would kind of fall under this, as well as those other buckets. So keep that in mind, and I can answer questions on that later. But that's something to keep in mind. So next slide, please, Amanda. So for the timeline, when it comes to internships and jobs, the nice thing about marketing is that there isn't a crazy discrepancy between when you would have to look for internships and jobs. So September and October is the big time to look for these analytical type positions within marketing. So you should be applying and interviewing for these types of jobs. Whereas in November, you can be having like a continuation of interviews and probably accepting offers. If you haven't found something by November and you're kind of going into, Thanksgiving break, winter break, and maybe even spring semester, it's not the end of the world. There are probably still some opportunities out there, but it's definitely going to be fewer opportunities on Handshake, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, wherever you're looking for these opportunities, just going to be fewer of them. Whereas that fall, this is where we're going to see the bulk of these opportunities coming up. So the fall career fair is super important. There are some applications that close like right before the fair or even like the day of the fair. So if any of you attended the fall career fair or plan on attending the fall career fair, you might be talking to employers or talk to employers where they're going to say like, oh, did you apply to this position? And you're going to be like, nope. Or, they're going to say, oh, plan on applying, it closes tonight or something like that. So if you're kind of getting ready for next year, make a note about it or something like that, that this is something to kind of be aware of, that you can already be, I applied for it last week, or already know about the position. And that way you can say, yeah, I applied for it last week. I already know a ton about the position. And now I just want to know more about like what it would be like to work for your company and have more specific questions about the position or the company, rather than like, what do you have available at this time? You'll have more specific questions for them. So moving on into the combination kind of bucket, This one is where it gets a little into that gray area. So some positions that live within here are brand management, project management, and product management, which again, kind of seem vague. But brand management is analyzing and staying on top of the market trends, watching competition, and leading the marketing and advertising campaigns to ensure that brand image is upheld. Project management is planning and implementing marketing strategies that in the end make customer more aware of the brand, and then working in unison with multiple teams and departments. And then the product management is leading a team from conception to launch and are behind the creative process of generating, developing, and curating new ideas. So how I would explain this combination bucket is that you understand the analytical side, you understand the creative side, but you are the manager. So you have to understand both sides to be the manager, because you're leading both teams to make sure that the project comes to fruition. These three kind of jobs or careers are not always entry-level positions. It really depends on the company. So you'll see if you're job searching right now, you'll sometimes see like project management or something, or product management. They might be asking for like 2 to 3 years of experience. Kind of depends. Usually it's like a step above into, so you might start as like a something analyst in a company, and then move into this more like project management, product management. I know at Epic is a big company here in Madison. They have more like project management as like an entry level role, because there's like a million of them. But usually it's not very entry level. But again, very much depends on the company. Sometimes brand management is more in like retail, whereas project management and product management are more in like marketing firms, marketing agencies, tech, those kinds of companies. So again, it's understanding both sides, having a brain that kind of understands the analytical side, understands that creative side, and then having kind of that management mindset where you just kind of want to oversee things rather than have your hand in one side or the other, having your hand kind of in both sides. Next slide. So for the timeline for this, because there's no like perfect way to explain this bucket, there's no perfect timeline for these roles. They seem to pop up more after the analytical jobs die down. So November to January, there's some downtime around the holidays, but November to January seems to be when these kind of pop up. But there'll be a few, in the fall, few in the spring, which is for students because they're like, when am I supposed to look for them? So a good kind of thing to do would be on your like Handshake profile or LinkedIn or something like that, set, alerts for these types of roles. So project management, product management, brand management, so that you're getting notifications for when these things kind of pop up, and for specific companies that you're looking into. So if you really want to work for Epic, then, set an alert so that you're getting that kind of alert so that it comes up. General marketing roles, internship and experience pop up at this time. So general marketing roles, and what I mean by that is like sometimes companies don't really know like how to label, or just like, we're going to give you experience. So sometimes like freshmen and sophomores who are really just exploring marketing, the kind of a time to look would be in this like November to January time, because companies who maybe haven't had internships before, or kind of your like small town mom and pop marketing, kind of tend to advertise at this time too. Like I said, some of these roles will be advertised at the career fair in the fall as well. So like I said, not a perfect timeline for these. It's kind of all year round. So again, it can be a little frustrating, but you can always chat with your career coach, kind of be on the lookout for specific companies if you are interested in that. just kind of good to know about that. The next bucket is that creative bucket. And I would say about like half of our marketing students are interested in the creative side, about half of our students are interested in that analytical side. So with creative, I usually give the example of advertising. That's a big one. The digital and social media is definitely kind of up and coming. And then PR and communications is also a really big one. Event planning or event marketing, I kind of threw in there as just kind of another one that might be of interest. Advertising, it's obviously to persuade customers to purchase or consume a particular product or service. And this can be, ad like campaigns in, magazines, billboards, on Instagram, lots of different places. Digital and social media generate exposure, opportunity, and sales to companies. And you're understanding the target consumer and how they best receive information. So kind of going back to that Diet Coke example, obviously the market research team is understanding the data behind it and why a woman in their 20s might be purchasing Diet Coke. But the advertising and that digital social media side is creating a Diet Coke campaign that a woman in their 20s would appreciate. So maybe they're using an actor that a woman in their 20s might appreciate, or they're using colors that a woman in their 20s might appreciate, or something like that. With PR and communications, sometimes we have, people in the journalism school are also kind of interested in this side of things too, which I'll also kind of get into. They're promoting the content a company's marketing team creates, as well as the brand as a whole. So writing press releases, they might ghostwrite things, and then they downplay some things and then also get people excited about others. So sometimes companies have things that they're not so proud of and are trying to hide that from the media. And then other times they're trying to get people excited about things. And then event marketing is creating an experiential marketing, or could be more hands-on. So we as consumers don't really know a lot about this, but they could be creating like booths or following up on leads. So like trade shows and things like that, those still do exist in the world, and we as consumers aren't that aware of them, but those do exist still and are around. So you as an event marketer could be in charge of creating that experience and making those like fun and creative and things like that. So for the timeline, jobs and internships. This is definitely a little bit more drawn out of a timeline, but definitely spring heavy, which is kind of nice. Most of the other majors in the business school are very fall focused, and the creative side of marketing is definitely spring focused. So January, February, March, and I would say more February and March than January, is applying and interviewing. March and April is the continuation of interviews. And then April is kind of that chance for last minute hires, but hopefully accepting offers. If you have something earlier, if you have something a little later, if interviews are, or you haven't accepted something till May, again, it's not the end of the world, but that's just kind of a rough timeline for something to kind of strive for, and give you kind of a rough estimate of time. The spring career fair will have some of these roles, but also pay attention to the journalism school events and career fair. I did send out email to marketing students last week about the journalism school career fair. If you didn't get those, I will stick around. If some of you aren't marketing students, I can give those out to you later. But those will have, more like advertising events or advertising agencies, things like that. Right now in 2021, the business school doesn't have a lot of curriculum, or like at their career fairs don't have a lot of for the creative side of marketing. Definitely working on it on the career fair side and on the curriculum side, both. We've just learned that students are getting more interested in this, and like numbers have increased drastically over the past like 2 years, I would say, that students are interested in this. Before it was like all analytical. So if you've noticed like your classes, it's very analytical heavy. and not a lot of opportunities for that creative side. And we've, I've told people, and so they're definitely going to get more in that creative side, but it's slow going. So we'll get more and it'll happen, but just going to take some time. Also for this creative side, it's really important to have experience, especially for advertising, on your resume for your career. So if you can have experience, it's really important. So that can be experience doing some marketing for the unions, for the library, for a department at UW, something. I know it's kind of hard in these COVID times, but if you can do something that's creating flyers, creating, a website, something like that, that's great. And they really want to see that you have some experience. So definitely really important. Networking and who you know can also be pretty important on the creative side. So definitely trying to get some informational interviews. Yeah, see you later. Definitely trying to get some the recording will be posted, and we can also send you a link. So, yeah, networking can also be pretty important. So if you're able to network, that'll be kind of really key. Again, not a lot of networking opportunities within the business school. The J school is great. And then anytime that you can do LinkedIn or create your own opportunities, that'll also be great. Next slide. I threw this one in sales because it doesn't really fit a bucket. But I thought I'd throw that in there because it kind of fits within marketing. So this is to identify opportunities for growth and development and strategize to pursue them and create and execute business plans. So I'm sure we've all seen sales in some capacity. And I thought I'd just throw that in there because it doesn't really fit into any major besides marketing. And again, doesn't really fit into any bucket perfectly. I guess more on the, well, I'll get to it. Next slide, Amanda, please. So what I said for the timeline is that the fall career fair is important within sales, but in spring, there's another push for sales because they usually call like this, they call it a last minute hire, which is a cruddy name for it because it kind of implies that you haven't been doing anything to get a job, which is untrue for a lot of students. So what I said is pay attention to your industry interest timelines. So some students are interested in selling more like tech or retail, lots of other things. So kind of pay attention to what are the timelines for those. So tech kind of has that fall push. Retail kind of has like a wintry into spring. I'm trying to think of some other example, like sports. I guess sports isn't really like sales. Recruitment is kind of like that sales piece. That's like a big spring push. So just kind of pay attention to when your industry has that interest and kind of follow with their timeline, just because sales is very different. Then next slide, please. So then just kind of getting away from the buckets, thought I'd just give like a little recruitment overview. Overall, the marketing recruitment timeline can be kind of confusing, and I completely understand that, which is why we put, something like this together. But totally understand it can be confusing and long. It goes throughout the entire year, which is frustrating for students. Unlike, your friends who are in finance and maybe investment banking, they have like September to find a job, which is cool for them because they're done. But also maybe not cool for them because if they don't find something, then, they're done. But you kind of have the year, which is good, but also, can be long and arduous and exhausting. So a few things, updating your Handshake profile can be helpful. Under your initials in the top right corner on Handshake is your career interests. And if you update that to the best of your ability and knowledge, Handshake will show you jobs and internships that will fit your interests. So if you update it to more of that, marketing And then you can type in like jobs that interest you. So if you do like more advertising or market research or things like that, it'll start to show jobs that might be interesting to you. Then overall, analytical is fall, creative is spring. I think that's the most important takeaway there. And then kind of like next steps, I think that's the next slide too, is make an appointment with your career coach. I am the career coach for marketing. And then if any of you are not in the business school, feel free to make an appointment with your career coach within, whatever school you are in. And if you have questions, you can always email me and we can always set up kind of an appointment elsewhere to kind of chat more about this. I'm happy to do that. Next slide, please, Amanda. And then resources and next steps, like I said, make an appointment with me or any of our career peers who are on Starfish. I also wanted to throw this in there, marketing resume oddities. So anything that might be more specific to marketing. Sometimes marketing resumes are more creative. So if any of you are in the business school or outside the business school, we put a lot of emphasis on making it more like black and white and pretty formal. If you are more of a creative mind, you might have a different layout or something like that. If your brain doesn't work that way, that is okay. You can make it formal and just leave it like that. So if you're questioning it in any way, leave it formal. I would say try not to get too fancy with like, oh, I'm going to try and be creative and just throw it in purple or something like that. That's not creative enough to make it creative. So people who are like really creative will do like crazy things in like Adobe and things like that. So there's probably some good examples on the internet that you could find if you really wanted to switch it up. Other than that, formal is good. Some technical skills on the creative side could be more like Photoshop, Adobe, WordPress, Canva, things like that. So using those more like those kinds of skills. And I know we're not in school right now and can't use the computer labs, but sometimes those are helpful. And the certificate in graphic design, or no, graphic studies. No, that's not what it's called. Digital studies and graphic design, I think, are the two that are kind of helpful within marketing in a business school. Then kind of like I mentioned before, if you can talk to people in the industry, kind of doing those informational interviews and create a network and learn more about the careers that interest you, that's awesome. Creating that network, creating connections through LinkedIn, that's going to be really, really helpful. And, can really kind of make it or break it for you sometimes. So that's kind of just resources and next steps. And that's kind of it. So I wanted to leave, enough time for questions and things like that. So Amanda is going to put, so you can go, and Amanda is going to put the link for the survey, kind of follow-up survey in the chat. And then I am here for questions. So if you have to go, just please take the survey, and thank you so much for coming, but I can also take questions when you're ready.
I'll ask a question. Do you feel like after like students graduate with like a marketing degree, they have like an easy time finding a job in like any one of the categories, I guess, or like do you see like people like ever struggle with that, I guess?
That's a good question. I think, well, this year has definitely been weird with like COVID and things like that. I would say I see more opportunities on the analytical side at first, like maybe that's just because it happens in the fall. So it's like easier to get picked up faster and things like that. But there are definitely a lot of opportunities on that creative side. I think because the creative side is so widespread and because you can do so many different things, that students have a hard time like narrowing down exactly what they want to do. And then they get a little overwhelmed with the options. So then it's like, oh crud, what do I want to do? And then it becomes like too many options. So I don't think it's like one or the other that has more opportunities in like number wise. I think it's just like narrowing down exactly what do they want to do. I know that was a little rambly, but does that make sense? Okay. But that was a good question. And there goes my dog, Randall. No bark. Randall, no talking to the neighbors. Other things?
I have something completely non-marketing related. If no one else has a question at this very moment.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm just looking at our audience and noticing the mid parts versus the side hair parts. I'm not on TikTok, and I heard this is a big thing. And now that I'm old and in my 30s, I'm supposed to be switching to a middle part, and I'm like, what? And sure enough, here we go. The audience is showing me I need to be switching it up.
Amanda, get with it. I mean, I need to too, but my hair doesn't do that anymore. I mean, it would, but I think that would be crazy. Other like general questions? Is everyone in the business school? Yeah, okay. Olivia, were you gonna ask a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so I think I'm graduating in the summer. So, and I'm a lot more interested in the creative side. But also if they're hiring in the spring, it's kind of like hard to like gauge time for that. Do you have any like, suggestions for how to go about that, I guess?
Yeah, I think a suggestion there would probably be to network now and kind of set yourself up for like success for later. So if you're networking now and kind of creating those connections, whether that's like informational interviews or just letting them know that you're going to be graduating, and kind of setting those conversations up of just kind of information gathering, and then kind of keeping those contacts throughout the summer. Because like I said, like this timeline thing is not perfect. There will still be creative positions available in the fall, but just probably fewer. The other good thing about the creative side, and that I should have mentioned, is that they hire for when jobs are available, which is why which is why they hire in the spring. So analytical hires for 6 months out or 7 months out. Creative side hires for when they need someone. So you might find that they're hiring in July for someone that they need in September, which will be great for you. If not, kind of getting to talk to someone right now and then throughout the summer and letting them know that you'll be available to start work in September is great. But you'll probably also find that throughout the summer, you'll see a ton of job postings that are going to start in September or August or whenever you're ready to start work, just because that's kind of how the creative side works, is that they hire for when they need someone, which is another great point that I forgot to bring up. So I'm glad that you asked that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It kind of goes along with like job searching, I guess, and like internships. Like, do you have any like advice, I guess, like going into like applying for internships? Because I feel like there's always so many out there, and I'm just like, do I apply to all of them that sound interesting, or are they going to be like, I don't know, educational and a good opportunity and like a learning experience or whatnot? So any advice, I guess.
Yeah, so I think people different coaches have different opinions. You can definitely send your resume to every creative or every analytical or every marketing position that you see, and that is a strategy. So if that's your strategy, go for it. I tend to think that it is better to really, Randall, not now, really read into the position and think like, is this something that you would be excited to do and excited to hear about and from? So if you apply to XYZ company and they responded, hey, Isabella, like we want to interview you on Friday. Are you going to be like, oh my gosh, like Friday, I'm so excited? Or are you going to be like, oh, okay, ugh, like, then why did you apply in the first place? And if your response is, ugh, then don't take the time, don't waste their time, don't waste your time. But if your response was, okay, cool, like, let me start preparing, then go ahead and send that resume. If read through the job descriptions, if it sounds at all interesting to you, go ahead and apply. I have some students that apply to 200 internships. I have some students that apply to 5 internships. And I have some students that apply to 200 and don't get anything. And I have some students that apply to 5 and don't get anything. Or I have some students that apply to 5 and get all 5 and offers. And I have students that apply to 200 and get 200 offers. Like, it's just crazy. So it's just sometimes, and that's the way it goes. But I would say if you are at all interested, go ahead and apply. It doesn't hurt to apply. If it cover letter is optional and you are excited about that offer, or you're excited about that job, write the cover letter. It just shows that extra interest. And if you can talk to someone at the company before you apply or right after you apply, even better. That's just a few little things to kind of make you stand out that much more. If you can't do any of that, it's not like the end of the world. I have people that, just sent a resume and still get the position, but any little bit kind of helps too.
Cool. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else? All right, I'm going to put my email in the chat so that you all have it, and I'm happy to answer any questions through email. If you are a business student, which I think you all nodded your head, I am also a career coach. So even if you are not a marketing student, you can all still meet with me. You just sign up through an appointment through Starfish. And if you're having issues doing that, you can always email me and we can figure out how to meet. If you are done, or if you want to stick around and ask me a question, you can do that. If not, Amanda did put the link to the survey. It's just right above my email. If you wouldn't mind taking that, again, it will take like no more than 5 minutes. It really helps us out and can kind of help us, improve this for later on next semester, whenever we do this next. It will be really helpful for us. If you don't have any more questions, you are free to head out, but I will stick around to answer follow-up questions if you have any. But I really appreciate you all coming, being engaged, and everything like that. So thank you very much, and look forward to meeting with you all. If you do have further questions, if you need anything, happy to help in any way that I can, okay? Happy Tuesday.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. Bye.